So, welcome to our session today. This is Miriam, Jekapu, and Joseph. We are starting the Activism Today class today. I'm very pleased that you're all here. Nice, to be able to share with you. We are Youth for Environment and Sustainable Development, Germany and Malawi. And we are going to talk a little bit about perceptions of climate change in Global North and Global South, a call for collective action. If you have any questions arising during our session, please write them in the YouTube chat, then we can answer them later in the end. And if you have any comments, suggestions, ideas, please also feel free to share them in the YouTube chat so that we can, catch up on them. So, yeah.
Right. So I think I'll just briefly introduce where we're coming from and also what we are. Can we proceed like that?
Yes.
Okay. So for the sake of some of you, this is Joseph Sakala, as Miriam said, and of course, we are two of us from Malawi and with our colleague Miriam. And of course, today it's exciting that we have also another opportunity to talk about climate change. And it's really an opportunity to be part of this public climate school on the activism today. So briefly, I'll just share my screen right away so that like you can appreciate what who we are and of course what we are doing. So basically we are a youth organization working on the environment. So yeah, of course that's my name. I work as the executive coordinator for YSD, and we are based in the capital city of Malawi, in Lilongwe. So just in case some of you are not exactly sure where Malawi is, it's in the southern part of Africa. And yeah, it's called the home heart of Africa. So that's our organization, and mainly we're involved in environmental and climate projects. So like you can see in the picture, here we're involved in climate resilience that promotes different adaptive and coping ways to climate change, but with more emphasis on empowering the farmer and putting the communities at the center of climate resilience. And also we conduct some trainings like you can see in that picture, and also realizing that young people, they are part of this struggle. So we also have some tree planting programs with young people across the country, and also providing some environmental education. Yeah, so briefly, I just wanted to highlight on that. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So now I will stop sharing the screen and over to you, Miriam.
Yes. And I am Miriam from YSD Germany. So I'm not in Malawi, I'm here in Germany. Also from Youth for Sustainable Development. We're a group also of young people. We started as a student organization working on climate justice and education on in that field. And we started from getting to know some people from YSD Malawi and getting inspired by them, and wanted to jointly contribute to climate justice. And we saw the need to be active in Germany, to do educational work, and also to join our forces with YSD Malawi to support each other in our missions. This is why we are here today together, because we both want to achieve climate justice and are working for that through education and activities. And today we want to talk a little bit about the different perceptions of climate change in Malawi and in Germany, and what kind of climate action we find in both countries, just giving some insights and examples. And yeah, then we will have a look on what this means for us, and yeah, concluding on a call for collective action, and how we do that, how we join our forces, and yeah, having a bit broader perspective on what that means for the world outside. Yeah, and then in the end we have also some time for your questions and thoughts, and are happy to, yeah, maybe fill some gaps that are still missing while we're doing our little lecture on the topic. So yeah, first I hand over or back to my both colleagues from YSD Malawi to give an insight on climate change perception in Malawi.
Yeah, great. You know, Miri, it's climate. It's a very dynamic and a broad topic, and as such, we appreciate that it has a dynamic in terms of perceptions and how people we understand climate change. So of course, we took time with my colleague Jacob just to reflect on how climate change is perceived in Malawi. And also, of course, we try also to draw some lessons even to other global South countries. So of course, this might be also a representative of even the perception that you might come across in even other countries across Africa and even other global South. So of course, I just wanted to highlight that what has been more important to the topic of our perception to climate change, one would want to understand exactly what it means, climate change in Malawi. So when you talk about climate change in Malawi, mainly we are looking at I would put it like I try to categorize it in 4 ways, but of course there might be even beyond that. But just for your understanding, when you talk about climate change in Malawi, you're looking at droughts, that persistent droughts that people have been experiencing. Other people talk about floods. To them, that's how climate is perceived. And also there have been strong winds. There are many fears that people always are afraid of these strong winds because of what my colleague Jacob will be able to even explain into greater detail later on after my picture. And also, of course, there's been a significant shift in rainfall calendar. So like in the past, we used to have rains like in October of every year, and it was stretching to April the next year. But nowadays, it's rarely that we have rain as areas we used to have in the past. So of course, those are some of the issues that my colleague will also try to shed more light. So what was important was just to give this overview so that you can appreciate what climate entails in Malawi. So I would want to invite my colleague Jacob, because he has he had time and he would like to share us on the scientific narrative and also a general perspective on climate change. Jacob, you can please share us what you have. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Joseph. So as already said, I am Jekapu Dishani. I do work with Youth for Environment and Sustainable Development. And I'm working as programs manager. So I'll share a presentation. All right, so We are looking at perception of climate change in the Global South, and we are considering a case study of Malawi. It is agro-based. Agriculture contributes about 25.45% to the national GDP. And you should also know that large proportion of Malawi population is rural-based, where about 82% are based in rural. And these people depend on small-scale rain-fed agriculture for food security. Despite this being the case, Malawi agriculture is most vulnerable to the shocks of climate change and also extreme weather events. And these smallholder farmers have low adaptive capacity, mainly because of knowledge gap and also resources. So I'll take you through how is climate change perceived in Malawi. So to do this, we are going to have to look at the changes in rainfall and also temperature patterns. So looking at rainfall and temperature data, people have observed that there is an unpredictable seasonal rainfall pattern in Malawi. They have also observed that the onset rains are coming late and also variable. For example, initially in Malawi, we used to have rains in October. By then, the rain season started shifting from October to November. And now the rain season is shifting back from November to December. So you can see that there's a shift in onset of rains. The other parameter that is perceived is reduced length of rain season. As my colleague Joseph has said, people have observed that the rainfall season is reducing. Instead of having 6 months as it used to be, now we are experiencing less than that. And in most cases, it can reach 3 months. There's also mid-season dry spells becoming more frequent annually. And people have also observed that there is high rainfall variability. Apart from this, there's also a general increase in annual average temperature. And again, people are also perceiving that nowadays they are experiencing hotter days and also cooler nights. And what you should know is that these things were not happening before, but because of perceived climate change, people are believing that these things are happening because of the climate change. So I went further to have a graph presentation of people's perception. And in this case, we are looking at perception of people on frequency of some climatic events. So as you can see in this graph, we have a number of climatic events at the bottom against the percentage of respondents who were interviewed to comment on their perception about the frequency. In the graph, they present those climatic events that are more frequent, while the red bar present those you can observe from the graph viewed in this study. It shows that all the respondents have observed that the climatic events are becoming more frequent than it was before. So this is an indication that most people in Malawi are perceiving that the increase in frequency of these climatic events might be as a result of climate change. So in my slide, I tried to compare the perception of people with the available empirical data. And what is interesting here is that the people's perception on climate change, monitoring for and temperature patterns, generally agrees with the empirical evidence that is available. For example,
Okay, I think we are facing the technical challenges that have to arise at some point when doing digital lessons, especially when crossing the continents and joining together. So we all know that in Germany, we sometimes have unstable internet connections. Same counts for Malawi. So Jacob was thrown out for a moment. Are you back now and could connect again?
yes, Miri, I'm back. Yes, I can, please. Okay, thank you so much. I lost connection, but our perception of people and empirical data in Malawi. So the general statement was that the perceptions of people agrees with the empirical evidence that is available. And I gave an example of empirical data that is showing that average annual temperature has risen by 0.9 degrees over the decades. I also said that they have observed changes in El Nino and also La Nina, which have increased by variability and also unpredictability. They have also observed that there has been increase in frequent and also intensity of flooding and droughts in Malawi. So you can see that the empirical data matches with the perceptions of people, which makes people now to believe that, yes, climate change is real. Now, in this slide, I tried to come up with
we have again difficulties to hear you.
Pattern of temperature, and I got it from
Okay, Jacob, I think it's a bit difficult to hear you right now. Maybe Joseph can try to comment on that and adding like the missing gaps.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Well, I think we just have some challenges there with the network, but of course, just to give you like the general perception, what Jacob was trying to do was to give you the scientific narrative and also the scientific perception on climate change. So for example, like he presented quite a different scenarios, like in terms of for example, like he talked about the narrative of I'll try just to, like he talked several issues ranging from how already we have erratic rains, and there are also these seasonal droughts, which he talked about. And already these are not just scientific data, but there's already impact on the ground, which is felt. And for example, like he in this picture, you can already see that there are flood incidences which connect to what some of the impacts and some of the events that are occurring as a result of this climate change. So in this picture, you can see there are instances where people even lose their relatives, their loved ones, their kids, sometimes even damage on properties like houses. There are even moments the whole village has to be displaced to another place in seeking of refuge. So these are like some of the scenarios where climate change is already affecting, and this is like an evident data which Jekapu is trying to provide. And I also wanted you know, like one thing that has also been interesting is besides these scientific evidence as to how people perceive climate change. There's also been some indigenous, you know, I've been working in the indigenous communities and with Lulo communities, exchanging with them on their understanding of climate change. And, you know, I've learned quite a lot over the time. And I would want just to share you some of these narratives and also how people perceive climate change. So sometimes, you know, I thought climate change, it's only about drought, floods, changes in rainfall pattern and all that. But I discovered there's more to climate change than just the weather itself. So in the next few minutes, I'll just share you some of the things that I've learned from these my grassroots friends in the communities. So like in this slide, of course, I just tried to mix everything in the same slide, but I hope
we can't see the slide right now. Maybe you have to retry.
Okay. All right. I'll just share the slide. Okay, fine. Perfect. Thank you, Miriam, for that. I think, yeah. I hope you can see something like grassroots perspective.
Yes, now it's there.
So, yes, thank you. So, like, what really interested me the most is that while we have this global and national debate on climate change and how it's perceived, there's also a narrative from the Lulo communities as to how they look at climate change. For example, when there's drought, there are floods, or sometimes, you know, people are displaced because of climate change. So one of the things that I learned is that climate change is also perceived as a sign of end times. So by sign of end times, what it means is that people feel that what is happening now is just validating or is confirming that indeed we are living in end days. And this is mainly drawn from the religious beliefs and also even from traditional beliefs. So there's this belief, strong belief that climate change will continue and might end up even destroying the world, and like maybe it will completely compromise all forms of life in a way that we can no longer produce, we can no longer harvest. And yeah, so this is just like one, but among so many narratives, like people have also this belief that what is happening now is because people have destroyed nature in Malawi. So of course, there are some instances where people are cutting down trees. There's little care on nature in some regards, although there are also efforts to conserve nature at the same time by different organizations, but also even different communities. We have some communities which have got like natural forest, but it's still perceived that because of the local impact of cutting down trees, that's why we have this climate change. And also others, they look at climate change as something which is there to stay. So like, as you can see here, there are other people that are just striving to survive. So like, okay, climate is there. You know what? We don't need to talk about it more because the more we talk about it, it's getting more emotional and all that. Maybe let's just live and strive to survive. Let's just do anything possible within our means to survive. So other people perceive climate change in that way. And you can also see like there's this understanding that the modern generation has also lost the connection with ancestors, because we are coming from a background that in the past, when there's no rain or when there's drought, our forefathers, they used to go like on the mountain top, or sometimes they would go in the forest, and they would pray to their ancestors to ask them to make the weather better and to bring the rain in good time. So, you know, with the coming of modern generation, and also in this 21st century, there's internet, globalization, and all that. And along the way, of course, we've lost some of these values. And there are still some elders who strongly believe that, okay, what is happening is because we've lost that connection with the ancestors. And now it's like we have nowhere to land to, and we have no one to like help to make the weather better. So these are just some of the things, but of course there are issues to do with some even just feel confused with what's happening. They're just wondering like, what exactly is happening? So like you can see like here, I was just saying like some don't even understand why all this is happening right now. And of course, for others, it's time to switch from work from agriculture, because Malawi, where we are, it's an agriculture-based country, and our economy is agro-based. So it means 70% of the people in Malawi, they are directly or indirectly involved in agriculture. So what it means, climate change directly affects agriculture. And some people perceive it like maybe it's a message to tell us to shift like from agriculture to maybe go in the city and work, or even seek a better life outside. So that's what I just wanted to share with you with regard to the perspective on the grassroots. However, of course, I also have colleagues and different organizations at national level, and also I learned that the perception is different from what you'd learn from the grassroots. So, for example, in the civil society, of course, there's a lot of discussion about like what is happening now, climate change. There are a lot of changes in temperature and all those things that my colleague Jacob ably presented to you. And this is connected, has been linked more to global activities that are influencing the local climate. So for example, the industrial activities, the emissions that are coming from the West, for example, this is what is also affecting the climate here in Malawi. So in this regard, climate change is perceived as a cross-boundary global emerging challenge. And also even there's this notion that rich economies and people are enjoying life, but unfortunately less developed, they're the ones who are paying the price at the receiving end. So there's like there's this perception and understanding that we are paying the cost, but of course on the expense of someone maybe enjoying good life, well-heated home, or well-industrialized lifestyle and all that. So there's also this understanding. And also, yeah, the climate change is also perceived as providing an opportunity. Like in my down point there, I was just highlighting that on a positive note, climate change has also like connected us together as a global community. That's why today, me and Miriam and Jacob were able like to address you, and also even to highlight on some of the activities that we are doing together, because climate change needs this kind of consolidated effort. So it's looking at the global community. We are all affected with climate change, but maybe differently, as you might also maybe soon hear from Miri, from her perspective from Germany, how they perceive climate change. But all in all, this has also created this global community. And of course, last climate change has also been catastrophic in terms of increasing unemployment and also even migration of people. There's climate migration, a topic which other people don't want to talk about it or even to qualify it as climate change causing migration. But what is happening here, it's an evident that people are really moving out of Malawi solely because they can no longer produce. They depend on agriculture, and climate change has deadly affected agriculture, and they can no longer produce. They move to other places, other countries. And even in some instances, there's even been some conflicts. And yeah, of course, economic instabilities. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to share on this. And yeah, I will hand over to Miri, because it also be interesting to hear like the perception from the global north as well. So Miri, over to you. I would like to hear from how people also perceive climate change in your regard.
Yes, thank you very much. I will comment on that just in a second. I just first want to maybe ask the first question from the YouTube chat, because it fits very much to the topic we're just talking about. So someone is asking, are there many people who deny climate change? And yeah, is it like noticeable, or is like everyone convinced that there is climate change and we have to do something on it?
Yeah, people believe that there's climate change. But what I was just trying to share is that there are different narratives and understanding. And that's why maybe today we wanted to talk about perceptions, because, you know, in most cases, we are all agreeing on climate change, but we don't talk about how do we alive to appreciate climate change. So in this regard, people believe in Malawi that there's climate change, and there's that agreement that this is something that calls for our action, and we need to do something about it. As I said, like in some communities, people even feel responsible for climate change, like they feel personally responsible. People in Malawi, in the villages, the people that have 0.0 something emission on like carbon and all that, but they personally feel liable that I am causing climate change, and I need like to protect the trees. I need to, like, we need to have this natural forest and all that. So like you and me, we are looking at climate change because we're looking at what is happening locally, but also we have this international exposure and understanding. So we're able to connect these two dots. But like I'm talking about even other people that don't have this international connection, but they just feel personally liable that, okay, what is happening now is because of the bad thing they've done to destroying nature and all that. But of course, I would not say that, okay, you are not part of the problem, no. But yeah, that's how they look at it, and that's what inspires them into action. So like they are planting trees, they would want to use a more sustainable forms of energy. Like now we are talking of renewable energy. So these are the directions that already people, they are working on. And even at national level, like government now has been receiving pressure from people like me and the others in the civil society, but also even in the communities to invest and focus more on renewable energy and a more sustainable way, but also even to engage at global scale. So to answer it in short, yes, people accept. I don't think there's someone in Malawi who deny that there's climate change. I don't think that there are many people who might not feel responsible to do an action on the ground as a response to climate change. Maybe there might be some few, but of course, there might be those isolated issues. That's why I wanted to bring to you also the grassroots perception and those indigenous perceptions.
Well, thank you. I think maybe we in Germany can like learn and get inspired by this way of everyone is like accepting and challenging a climate change perspective, because I think, yeah, this is something that is lacking in Germany, even though most of the people, of course, see climate change, and mostly everyone is also, convinced, let's say, that there is human rooted climate change and we have to do something, but not everyone. So I think like how climate change is like affecting and seen in Germany is a lot about rising temperatures, which also some people perceive as positive, because then it's like warmer in the summer and maybe not so cold in the winter. Even though like I think most of the people see it in a negative way. And I'm coming from the north of Germany, so here it's also very present to think about rising sea levels and the threat that this is posing to the coastal areas. And also, I think it's widely recognized that more catastrophes like floods, storms, and heavy rainfalls are there due to climate change. Like recently in the last years, I think there was like a really maybe also change in seeing and perceiving climate change in Germany. If you want to correct me, anyone who is listening and watching, please feel free to write in the YouTube chat. But I have the feeling that after this summer in 2018 and also the following summers that were very dry and hot, people really feel that climate change also arrived in Germany and the impacts are really present and here. Because like, in this drought summer, several people were facing water scarcity, that you were not allowed to water your plants in the garden in some communities and so forth. Like the water level in some rivers was quite low, so that ships could not pass, which also affected, for example, the industry. Because they could not ship their goods from A to B, for example, on the Rhine, which is something very noticeable. But also like it affected people because, for example, there were some ferries that could not cross the Elbe, so that people had to make a long round to find the next bridge or the next ferry that is in a place where the water was still high enough. And also there were some big forest and also moor fires. Some of them were very publicly seen, some maybe not, but they were also like, I think, touching some people. And also like, I think the heat now is like considered more like a negative impact of climate change more broadly. And what is also experienced here in Germany is the variability in seasons. So like flowers coming out in November because it has 15 degrees and it's all like nice spring weather, but like 3 days later there is winter. So this is something, like the seasons are just as in Malawi changing, or like sometimes are not like in an ordinary way. So I think there are like a lot of things that we can see that are like similar, like the affection of droughts or the seasonal variability, even though, of course, it hits hard in Germany when we have several droughts after another, and even like some people had struggles to feed their animals because like yields from grass and so forth were so low. But still we don't have to like fear that livelihoods, or a lot of livelihoods, are the economy in general, or people are like really negatively affected. And this societal perspective, I would say, is that it's perceived as a threat to humanity, especially for future generations and people in the global south, but more and more, like people are also seeing the current impacts of climate change in Germany. And I think mitigation is like seen kind of as a responsibility, maybe even as a collective responsibility in global north, at least from a lot of people. but people are, on the other hand, not so much motivated to do so much because it's also related to negative impacts on economy and lifestyle. I wanted also to give a few words on climate activism, and I will also name some organizations and movements. If you have if you know any organizations, movements, groups, etc., or activities regarding climate action, please feel free also to write them in the YouTube chat to share with the others. So climate activism is in Germany currently understood as protest, civil disobedience, etc. For example, as it's done by Ende Gelände in the Hambacher Forst or now in the Dannenröder Forst, the Fridays for Future movements, etc. But there are also like other groups and actions, also smaller groups and more local groups. And what is like very notable is the slogan, "We are nature defending itself." So it's not only about, we as humans from Germany protecting the climate to protect others, but we are part of the nature and we have to defend the nature because we are part of it. So we are defending not only nature but also people all around the world and also ourselves. And it's a big struggle for a lot of young people now, as probably a lot of you are also part of that. And yeah, like I think the main concrete fields of action in Germany are stopping coal, sustainable mobility, food, and yeah, very like practical also rescue forests. And there are a lot of forms of activism, blockades, demonstrations, petitions, but also creative forms like dance performances and so forth. And I think what is very important to see is that this is not the only form of climate activism, but that also like bigger environmental groups like BUND or Greenpeace or NABU are like doing things on the topic. There are a lot of small NGOs doing several things, lobbying local implementation of mitigation or adaptation activities and so forth. There is also on the political level, the parliamentarian opposition. And like especially now, like boosted by Fridays for Future, let's say, a lot of different societal groups like Churches for Future or Scientists for Future and so forth are like also, like joining this climate justice movement. And I think it's also very important to see that it's even more diverse. And for example, being active in education on sustainable development, as you can see here in the picture, or in education on decolonizing the world, or even being active in ecological or regenerative agriculture or experimenting with alternative mobility ideas is like part of the climate justice movement because you're contributing. And I think this is also a big motivation for a lot of young people, but also people all across the society, to be active and to do what they do, even though you would not in the first moment summarize it under the umbrella of climate justice. But yeah, a lot of people feel part of it and want to be part of it with their activities. And I think, that's a great opportunity. So yeah, these are some thoughts and insights from me and my YSD Germany colleagues, but I see that there are also other opinions in the chat, for example, that people in Germany don't care. There's a huge minority which do nothing about it and just ignore anything that they do to have a better impact on climate. And I think this is also part of the reality. I think there's big movements, but there's not like the whole society really aiming for climate change, because I think if it would be like that, we would be in another point right now. But yeah, I think it's rising and there's some hope. And as we can see so much also connections in how climate change is affecting. Yeah, and also like in what, and that we see the need to be active. I can pass on now, and we can have a little insight on how and why we have to, yeah, be active collectively.
Yeah, it's very interesting hearing from you, Miri, and the you know, already what you talked about, the growing interest in young people to actively engage on climate issues, and also to do something about it. It's really something that already calls for collective action. So as you might see that there are quite a lot of similarities as to how climate change is already affecting us, and it's already compromising our livelihood. So we've been discussing this topic for quite some time, and we realize that we can do something on our own locally, but of course, maybe we can even do much more when we come together, like people from different parts of the world, to confront the climate challenge together. So we just show you something like some examples how we look at it. So like in this, I'll just share my my screen just to show you how we look at collective action in the fight against climate change. So in this slide, you're seeing that we're looking at capitalizing on the synergies that collective action brings. So for example, like what Miri talked about, what's happening in Germany, and mainly we're looking at the aspect of activism. So when you look at the activism in Germany, and also there's also the activism in Malawi and also in different parts of the world. But maybe besides just the local activism, I think we also need to touch base, because like we are confronting one thing, but using different approaches in different ways. So there's need for a concerted effort that would like put our efforts together, and then we can have this global impact at the end of the day. But what I wanted to talk more is that the climate change has created this global village in which we need to perceive it like we are in one village, and this village of ours is confronted with climate change as a challenge that threatens the livelihood of people and also nature, and we're also looking at different ecosystems. So we, for example, have a cooperation with our friends in Germany, the YSD Germany and YSD Malawi. So we are an organization, an environmental group of young people, and also same applies to our colleagues in Germany. Like in that picture, of course, I tried to marry the two different pictures, that one was taken in Germany, one in Malawi. But ideally is that, you know, the moment we start connecting and working together, we will realize that we are confronting this challenge at personal and relationship level. So for example, when you say, okay, let's fight climate change because it's causing challenges in Africa, but you don't have any connection with anyone from any African country, it might mean that maybe your perception as to what climate change really entails in Africa, and also what climate change really entails in Europe, might be different from like having friends, relatives, or a group of people that you're working with that are in that particular place, and that already helps to shape the global narrative as to how we can realistically and practically approach climate change. So I will give this opportunity to my friend Jacob, because he would want to even expand on the specific activities that we are doing as an opportunity of this collective action. So Jacob, I would want you to highlight more on some of the activities that we are able to achieve, but through this collective action.
I think we have the bad luck that Jacob again lost the connection.
Okay, yeah, but I think then I'll just share like what some of the issues that Jacob wanted to highlight. So in a minute, I'll just share the screen again. So like what Jacob prepared, it's very interesting that he highlighted some of the things that we have been able to achieve them, but through collective action. So for example, like we have this cooperation, and through this cooperation that we have, I just show you the picture in my previous slide, showing these two different groups between Germany and Malawi. So one of the things that we've really been able to confront is the improved, like in food security among smallholder farmers. And this was through the understanding that as YSD Malawi, we are able to work with these communities. And YSD Germany appreciates the significance of how important it is to confront climate change, but also to ensure that people are able to maintain their food security. So together we came up with a project, and this project has been able to address some of the food challenges gaps. And also we are able even to help communities to establish cooperatives where they can like sell their produce together, and hence empowering their economic livelihood. But also, you know, climate change also brings vulnerability, especially to women groups. So, you know, when you look at gender just from one narrative, you might miss the whole picture. But like through this coming together with our colleagues in Germany and also Malawi, and also with other organizations locally, we've been able to define the gender narrative with regard to climate change. So we realize that young people as well as women, that have been even vulnerable because of climate change. So we've been working to empower women in our projects, and also to help people like to be disaster prepared, because one of the things that climate change is perceived with in Malawi is the issue of disaster. So yeah, together with this collective action, we've been able to have different projects, and these have been successful because we always have to ensure frequent communication, and also to consolidate each other's ideas. So there's no one who is more important or who has more ideas than the other, but rather we need to coexist and like to accommodate each other, and to level a balanced cooperative platform where every partner and every corporate member is as equally as important as everyone. Yeah, so I just wanted to share that from Jacob. And Miri, I think you might also wish maybe to say something. But lastly, maybe I would want just to scale it up at global level. Like, how would this collective action look like? Because maybe sometimes we try to look at what locally we can do, but also maybe what we can do between Malawi and Germany. But also maybe there's a bigger picture to it, which we also have to talk about, Miri.
Yes, so maybe just one thing to add, which is I think very important, that like we started also like, yeah, getting to know each other and getting in touch like on a same level base. So like environmental activist students in Malawi, environmental activist students in Germany, linking up together. And yeah, I think like out of this equal level base, we started to create this cooperation. And of course, we found a lot of structural trap holes and still existing global power structures that are like putting barriers in the way of a really like cooperation that is really 100% on one level. But I think like with our trust and communication and joint mission, let's say, we're like constantly tackling this. And then I would like maybe for the scaling it upwards, give it back to you, Joseph. We have only 4 more minutes, so
yes, I realize this.
we have to keep it short, even though the global scale is big. So please.
Exactly. And you know, like what is interesting is that when we started engaging in this conversation, what was important to us was not to point fingers at each other like, okay, you are the problem, we are the problem, but like we appreciated that this is a common challenge, and we need to come up with collective action, which we just shared. And what I'll do now, I'll just share you one aspect at global scale, because this collective action is not complete if at global level we are not able to cooperate. So I just have this one slide, only this slide, but I tried to bring all the story together. So there's this global demand for collective action, as you might see in this slide. My experience, I've been privileged to be joining the Malawi delegation during the COP, Conference of Parties conferences. And one of the conferences which I actively participated was COP21, which took place in Paris in 2015. And of course, I've also attended several other COP meetings. And what has been interesting is that up to now, it looks like we need to come up with a balance, as in terms of there's always issues of economic viabilities in the negotiations, and they're also looking at the same time on environmental friendliness with respect to climate justice, and also there are issues of socially justified decisions. But all in all, what I've taken out of these meetings is that you know, like one can try to act on climate change, but together we can make it we can make it real, and we can realize the difference. We can make the difference that we all desire. So it really demands like collective action, not just between one organization in Germany and another organization in Malawi, but also even at global level. So there's this interesting thing that happens, that there's developed countries who are emitting, and then they pay carbon tax to less developed countries that are planting trees. So I was looking at it like in this kind of equation, like you can see on the bottom of my slide there, we are talking about emission plus emission reduction. It results to zero progress. So like much as we still have this kind of narrative that, okay, we can pollute provided we pay for that, and other people that are engaged in activities to reduce the emission, at the end of the day, there's still no any progress. So we need to rethink the balance on economic viabilities, environmental friendliness, and social justified decisions. But of all, I think what should take the center stage is to consider the climate justice and the environmental agency which we have now. Yeah, so because of time, I would want to stop on that, Miri, and hand over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. So there are a few questions left in the chat that we could not answer yet. So if you want, you can send us an email to ysd@janun.de or approach us via Facebook or the webpage there in the description of this event, I think. If not, maybe they can appear there. So yeah, please contact us if you want your questions to be answered, if you have any more questions. And maybe we can have some last seconds because I think this is a very interesting question, and maybe you can like make a 30 seconds quick speech on that, Joseph, before we end here. What impact can Malawi and its people have in achieving climate justice, or is it mainly other countries that need to act?
Well, we feel that that's why, like I ended the talk about this global collective action that is required. So there's no country that should be isolated from the confronting climate change, because even if we don't do anything, we are still hit hard with climate change. So, but I feel there's not really a very big impact in terms of if we plant more trees or if we change our lifestyle. It won't really change a lot in terms of the global picture of climate change. But I think it will just set a good example that would inspire other people to see that there are different possibilities we can live with and we can live without. And at the same time, we are trying also to inspire different other groups like you who are participating in this, and also colleagues like Miri, that, you know, we can do something together, and maybe let's start. And then maybe at global scale, they can emulate what is happening by like-minded people like you colleagues who have joined us. So I just wanted to say, we are not really looking at it from the impact that we can make at global scale, but we are looking at it from the what we can influence in terms of engaging people into action and bringing the topic as relevant as it is. And it's really unfortunate that, of course, there are other countries that are not really committed as expected. Of course, the issues of US politics, geopolitics, which many people, of course, now they feel like maybe USA did not set a good example. So these are issues at global scale. There are different other countries, of course, that are not also setting example. But if we have these strong economies committing towards climate change, that to us, it's a sigh of relief, because then it's easy even to influence those other less industrialized countries to also follow suit. But of course, we should not wait until they do something good. But those of us who can manage, let's do the little that we can do. And then we have the hope that in the future, yeah, we can make a little difference, and we can also inspire others.
Okay, thank you very much. So there was another question in the chat, which is, in what ways are women especially affected?
Well, you know, when you look at the impact on women, actually, to begin with, already our culture, it disadvantages women in the sense that in terms of, for example, access to different opportunities, men are likely to access opportunities than women. And when you think about women working in agriculture industry, that might imply that access to, for example, farm inputs, facilities and services like seeds, or maybe having a loan that would help them to do farming, as well as in terms of drought, women have to travel long distances just to fetch water, and even sometimes they are vulnerable to participation in decision making when it comes at local level, but also even at international level. I mean at national level. So you find that most of the times these discussions and decisions, they are mostly pioneered by men, and but when it comes to action on the ground, they are the women that are in majority, and yet they are not given that space to participate in the decision making. And sometimes some of the decisions that are made, they are not really like in the interest of women, and also sometimes they even subject women to other vulnerabilities. So when we are looking at issues of women inclusion, is because we realize that even culture already disadvantages women, and climate change as well. You talk of men maybe who are working because maybe they feel like they are more important and they should be given more opportunities. But when there's not that work, it's a woman at home who has to struggle in terms of what to feed the kids, how to take care of the home, how to take care of the family. So these are the people that should be considered and should be empowered, not just empowered in terms of participation in the activities, but they should be empowered in a way that they are part of the decision making and they are part of the development process. So I just wanted to highlight that indeed there are several scenarios where climate change has made these women to be even more vulnerable. When you talk about famine, where there's no food at home, they have to travel like long distances, and sometimes they spend days waiting on the queue just to buy food. So most of the times you not find men on those queues. Most of the times you find women. Sometimes even they've carried their children on the back. So those are some of the vulnerabilities that we are talking about. And even when it comes to working on the farms, in most rural areas, you find that there are more women working on the farms than as compared to men. I remember visiting some areas where there was floods. You know, sometimes men can run away. They can run, and the woman is thinking about their children, is thinking about, okay, I can't leave my child behind. I have to carry the child. You know, such kind of situation, they make them even more vulnerable. So unfortunately, this is how culture sometimes, which is not completely bad, but maybe we just need to rethink and to reshape how our culture perceives people, and also how it can integrate people in a way that there's an equal footing for all the people in the community, and that the interest of those people, the concerns of those people, they are equally addressed and equally prioritized.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think this is like something where like I think a lot of movement also has been like taking place in Germany, but still even after decades of like feminist movements and like changes in society, like women and men are still not the same. It's like, yeah, such a huge cultural like thing, and like huge thing, like how things are done and how you're used to it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, and already that's a challenge on its own. And then you have climate as well coming on top of an already complicated situation. So that's really makes things not good for most women. Of course, I should say that there are also people that are also women, and also trying as much as they can to involve them in the decision-making process. For example, like in the presentation, we highlight that gender is one of the key issues that we appreciate, and we have put so much interest in it by ensuring that even in our communities, you find that women, they're part of the decision-making process. And even when it comes to like planning for the project and different activities within the project cycles, we always make sure that there's women representation, because we realize that by doing so, we are setting an example that women are capable and women can deliver. And in so doing, the communities now realize that, oh, wow, you see, they were part of this process and it worked out successfully. So like we are also setting a precedence, because culture, you know, it's a complex discussion, but to some extent it's a narrative. Like someone had to make that narrative, and we can also rethink that narrative and to put it in a way that is able like to put people in a way that they're not vulnerable and also they are not disadvantaged, but at the same time while preserving the basics and the important aspects of our cultures. Because we cannot say that, okay, no longer culture everywhere, because that's already a battle that we cannot win, and maybe it might make people to lose their identity. So it's good in the sense that we preserve our identities, but maybe we should do so not at the expense of making other people vulnerable, but rather in a way that we empower everyone, and everyone should be proud of their culture, not intimidated by their culture.
Yeah. 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 And I think like it's like such a like it's a very long-term narrative, something like culture, but yeah.
Yeah.
So it's also a long-term issue to always reflect on what is like something very precious in the culture, and like it's important to keep it and like to celebrate it together with other people, and to continue, and what is like maybe something that has to be that rethought. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Okay. Yeah, I think actually like there was not another question. So
okay.
Yeah, it was just like interesting going on of the conversation. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's interesting. So I think it's good to have these conversations, and I think also what I like is that at the end of the day, you know, like by and by these conversations, they are trying to reshape, I think, the direction in which the future should look like, and also as I said, like these emerging issues that are putting us like in a village where like we are confronted with one challenge, and of course this challenge presents different faces in different countries, but at the end of the day the bottom line is that we all accept that this is the challenge, and one person cannot deal with the challenge, and it really does demand this collective action. So I feel this is just my personal opinion, but I feel like moving forward, I think the world has to be reshaped in a way that we are doing things in a collective way, and also like in a global consideration, because like what happens in one place affects another place. So in this way, I think we have to move or migrate from individual-centered development to global-centered development. So like, for example, what we do in Germany, what we do in Malawi, how does that make other people to be even much more better than being vulnerable? So, you know, like even the issue of COVID-19, which would not be directly part of this discussion, but already you can see that COVID-19 is also connecting the global community together, and like there are some guidelines, standards which are trying to be deprecated to different countries and to be followed. So the same as climate change, I feel like if we can also collectively and effectively work on addressing the climate challenge, it should be possible to reduce and avoid some of these impacts that people are suffering in and day out. So it's really interesting that we are having these discussions, and in a way we are also trying to reshape the future thought on how to approach global development.
Yeah, and I mean, like also on this global level, there is like I was taking part in an event that was about the SDGs, and then we also we're having a look back, like the MDGs were like just addressing like countries of the global south, that they have to develop, that they are the problem, that they don't have good health whatsoever. And like now the SDGs, like with all their problems that they have, and with everything you can like criticize on them, they like using a different like view that okay, that we all have to develop to achieve these 17 global goals, and that we all have to contribute to that. And I think like let's see what comes after that, and let's be part of shaping that view.
Yeah, exactly. And already now the UN is making some consultations in countries as
Oh,
to
really?
how they would want their countries to look like in the future. So yeah, maybe we hope to have a more domesticated kind of approach, but that also tries to connect the global community to act towards one direction. Because yeah, I feel like that's also the way to go. We need in the first place to understand the domestic picture before we approach the global picture, because like there's approaches or interventions that have not, simply because they lacked understanding. So like moving forward, this would also be one important aspect, like to appreciate the domestic environment. And this is maybe, okay, like looking at our cooperation, the collective action that we are talking about, it's not really something that we can say we are 100%, but we're also in the learning process. But at least our understanding of the domestic environment has helped us to reshape the kind of approach and how we can approach these projects, and how we can integrate Europe and Malawi towards addressing these climate issues. And I feel like it's something that can also be emulated and scaled up, like to have this domestic understanding of the environment and situations on the ground, and to use that to reshape what we can be able to do collectively at global scale. Yeah.